Thank you for joining us on ZTV1 as Southern Africa, particularly Zimbabwe, becomes the center of attraction in the whole world because of this great phenomenon, the eclipse of the sun. I'm joined by Peter Banga of the ZBC to give some insight and talk about the eclipse as people in and around Southern Africa, people from in and around the world have converged in this part of the world to view this great phenomenon, the eclipse of the sun. Peter, some parts of Zimbabwe will receive a total eclipse, some will receive a partial eclipse. The waves that have been created by this phenomenon in Zimbabwe, from the tourism part of it and from the natural phenomenon itself, what have been the impressions?
Robson, people are actually excited about the whole thing. They are gathering in the various parts of Zimbabwe where we are having the center line of the area of total eclipse. We have the Mudzi district. Actually, that's where, if you go there, that's where you have the total eclipse. But you also have areas which fall within the center line. You are talking of areas like Makuti, Muzarabani, Centenary, Mount Darwin, Madziwa, Nyamapanda, and Mutoko. So for the people who are out there, as you can see, for those with eclipse viewers, in fact, people are encouraged not to look directly at the sun without the help of eclipse viewers. So the people in these areas actually are having, I think, an experience of a lifetime.
It's an exciting experience. We're also going out to use the eclipse viewers, and that's the message coming from the Ministry of Health and Child Welfare. The Deputy Minister has been emphasizing for the whole week, Dr. David Parenyatwa, from the Optical Association of Zimbabwe, from the Astronomical Association of Zimbabwe. The emphasis is that for this great excitement to view this phenomenon as the moon and the sun encroach into each other's way, what you need are eclipse viewers for your viewing and for the protection of the eye, because it has been the experience in some parts of the world where eclipse happened, knowing that the last eclipse witnessed was in August, on August 11 in 1999 in Europe and some parts of Asia. Some people were left blind because they didn't take heed to view the eclipse, with eclipse viewers preferring to use the naked eye, which is not advisable. But the issue has been, Peter, the attraction to this part of the world, Southern Africa, Zimbabwe included, knowing that the path of this eclipse is coming from the Atlantic Ocean, coming into Angola, Zambia, ultimately Zimbabwe and Mozambique included. The industry of tourism has benefited at the end of it all.
In fact, for a country like Zimbabwe, we have every reason to smile, because the past few years have been very, very tough. The international media has been portraying a very dark picture of the situation in Zimbabwe. And for the first time in a very long time now, we're having tourists coming from far afield as Germany and some parts of Europe. And we sincerely hope that this is a turning point in our tourism, the development of our tourism, because really, if the truth be told, these could only be our ambassadors, the people who will tell the story back home that all is well. Bearing in mind, of course, the contribution that has been made by our police, the Zimbabwe Republic Police, the message that they've really relayed a very tough message. They are there in large numbers. They are there, they mean business. They actually are sending messages that any criminal activity will actually be dealt with quite severely.
The picture we see on our screen now is testimony that everything is reality. It was not a joke, people talking about the eclipse of the sun, and there's much interest to it. But looking at the eclipse of the sun, it's a phenomenon where the sun, the moon, and the earth are in a straight line. And issues that come into it are a phenomenon like the penumbra, where there is a partial shadow, the moon encroaching into the earth. Then there is the umbra, the region of total shadow, the region of total eclipse, total darkness. And those are the areas you are mentioning for Zimbabwe. The areas like Muzarabani, Makuti, and that's where we talk about total eclipse or total darkness, Peter.
And Robson, really, what is very interesting about this phenomenon, if you are in Umbra, as you are mentioning, it's actually said that you can actually see the stars. They are actually visible. And if you really use your viewers, you can actually see some unique features on the sun. So in actual fact, this is a unique opportunity for tourists. And then also it has been mentioned that scientists are out there. They are actually making studies. Some of them will actually be in the books. They will actually write authoritative books. They are looking at, for instance, the behavior of animals like birds. You know, birds, when they come to roost, they only come to roost when it's night time. So when they get this darkness, how are they going to behave? Even hippos, they'll come out of the water at night time. Well, what is going to happen? How are they going to behave? So
I don't know whether there are any dangers for animals going directly to the sun to view the phenomenon, as well as these warnings have been directed at human beings alone, and protection of the eye has been paramount. Joining us on the program as well is Melton Piri from our engineering department here at the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Center. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This great occasion, the great phenomenon, something that has become a subject of debate in and around Southern Africa and the world over, and there's been great attraction to this part of the world from all over the world. But an eclipse of the sun, in simpler terms, how do we explain that?
Yeah, well, in simple terms, it's the fact that the moon is rotating around the earth. So in this particular instant, as the moon is rotating around the earth, it has gone between the earth and the sun. And considering the size of the moon as compared to the size of the sun and the earth, this eclipse can only be seen in a certain part of the region in the world, and Zimbabwe has been lucky to be that region at this particular moment where we are seeing the total eclipse.
Peter, one of those comments that came from different quarters in and around the Zimbabwean scenario as we looked forward to this great phenomenon has been, we have not fully marketed this event. We have not taken full advantage of this lucky phenomenon that comes to Southern Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe. Do you share the same sentiments?
actually, the Ministry of Environment and Tourism and the Zimbabwe Tourism Authority are actually quick to defend themselves that they have actually done their homework, that they've actually done a lot of homework, they've thrown their weight behind this venture. But really, what we tended to see was only during the past week. That's when we had an intensified kind of exercise, a more aggressive push. So me, what I think is this could have been done long back, you know, even in terms of getting ourselves exclusive rights, so that we can actually get money out of that venture, so that we can actually tell the story to the world from our own perspective, rather than people coming from elsewhere to get the story and tell it for us. So that's my own impression.
Melton, information technology, the use of the internet, the use of the email, people say it largely has contributed to people converging to Southern Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe, for this great phenomenon. Has it been used to the fullest, the issue of information technology, particularly the internet and email?
Yes, I guess Zimbabwe has got an internet. The telecommunication facilities can provide for that internet technology. So I think at the present moment there is congestion. People are communicating from one point to the other, trying to get information, tourists exchanging information, scientists. And I think most people right now in Zimbabwe, they are in one part of the country. And I think lines coming from that direction, Mudzi, Manapus, Nyamapanda, I think people are using internet right now at its full extent.
Robson, I would also want to get it from Piri. The fact that a lot of people have asked questions that it's all very well to look at the sun and on a day-to-day basis from the time you are born to the time you die. But in this particular instance, what is it about the sun? What is it which is being given out which is so harmful?
Right. As we approach the total eclipse, what is happening is the moon is covering up the sun slowly. So you find that the intensity of the sun is still strong, though we are experiencing this eclipse. So the total eclipse is only going to be experienced for 3 minutes, but a lot of people are going to try to look at the sun even before the actual time has arrived. And taking that risk is what is going to cause the damage. The intensity of the sun is just too bright, even if there is partial coverage of the sun. But perhaps when there is total eclipse, still I believe there will be some kind of brightness which will be strong enough to cause damage to eyes. But
is it anything to do with ultraviolet rays?
Yes, all those rays are part of the dangers which will cause those problems.
And it's the whole eye or parts of the eye?
What I know is there is the retina, which is part of your eye, and I believe that is the part which will get damaged because it is the one which responds to light when we are looking normally at a picture.
Yeah. I know people have been asking this big question: what's the excitement really watching the moon encroaching into the path of the sun?
Well, let's take it this way. It's a rare occasion to have an eclipse, and an eclipse normally takes place at a particular point after a very long time. Though it might occur in different parts of the earth every year, but to come back to the same place, it might take a lot of years before it comes there. So when the opportunity arises, that's when the excitement comes.
And Robson, I think one aspect we should never overlook is the fact that this is also a social event as well as a scientific event. Here is a chance for you and your family actually for an outing of a lifetime to actually experience socialization under those very conditions. So I think to that extent, apart from what Milton Piri is actually saying, I think that is one aspect which we should never overlook.
You mentioned the social aspects and the kind of cartoons that have come out of that event and the kind of jokes that have come out of the event. I'll tell you of one big joke. Someone said there are people who are deciding that because of the attraction, the boost on tourism and the enhancement on tourism, some people are actually planning to have it as an annual event and extending the day from 1 day to 1 week. Anyway, it's a joke. But the issue of these glasses, it's an industry that has also benefited. The pairs of glasses, the escalating of that price from $150 to $750 this morning.
Well, I think it's because we are reaching a climax here. Initially, maybe people, before the event comes, they are not that interested and the demand is very small. But once the demand starts rising, maybe people take advantage of that demand and they start charging a high price.
And Robson, you see, this is one of the characteristics of us, the black Zimbabweans. When you are given your water or electricity bill, normally you wait until the end of the month. And then when the city of Harare gives out a warning that they are going to cut water supplies of anyone who has defaulted, then you see queues and queues of people. So this is something which some people might deny it, but actually this is actually part of our social culture, that at the very last minute, that's when you start to rush. Be it registration for examinations, be it payment of school fees. At the very last minute, people start to rush.
In this case, there are some people who might be excused because they thought it wasn't real.
Thank you.
You are watching live the phenomenon of the total eclipse of the sun, and from the picture that we're seeing, Melton, this almost the total eclipse, but it depends from where you are in and around Zimbabwe.
Yes, that is very interesting, because what we are seeing now is we are seeing about, say, 95% of total eclipse. This is the effect which all those people who are not in the line, in the 100% region, will see when there is now total eclipse. They will see that kind of effect. Like those in Harare, it has been said that they will see 98% at the time of total eclipse. So in other words, they will see that curve, that small curve of light which is being seen there. But for those who are lying on the 100% region, that is in the northern eastern part of the country, they are going to see the total eclipse, which we'll be seeing very soon.
And that's the difference between partial eclipse and total eclipse.
Yes.
Peter, the behavior of animals you were referring to, we saw from those pictures the behavior of the hippos going on top of the water, and the behavior of the birds singing, signifying that the characteristics of total eclipse, the sky becomes dark, stars are visible, the temperature falls, and birds at some stage will stop singing because it will be dark.
Well, Robson, you and I and Melton, we had the chance to sneak out and actually see the gradual development, the kind of situation that we have now. But in areas like Manapuz, for instance, the sounds of the birds that you're hearing now, it actually signifies that they think it's now getting to be night time. And even the hippos, the behavior actually, like we were discussing earlier, it actually shows that now they believe that it's now night time. That's how they would actually behave under night time conditions.
I wonder what the biblical interpretation to this whole phenomenon will be about. It's something that came at the back of my mind. What priests, what bishops, what churchgoers would say about it. Melton, any insight into that?
Well, there are a lot of beliefs which go on. It depends which religion you come from. Well, I've heard a lot of stories. Some are saying perhaps this is the end of the world. So we'll discover in a few minutes whether the world is going to end today.
In Shona, Peter, people would say, and this Zwara Wara.
In fact, Zwara Wara, it's actually a very, very bad omen, a sign that bad happenings will occur in the not so far future, because actually it's interesting that when this phenomenon, for those in the know, the very elderly people, they will actually tell you that there would actually be need for a cleansing ceremony before and after this kind of happening. So traditionalists are really scared when these kind of developments occur.
Look at that picture on the screen, and just a portion of the sun is still up and almost going to that total eclipse, and that's the phenomenon, the excitement you were talking about, Melton.
Yeah, now we are reaching the climax. I think this is the point which everybody has been waiting for. If you look at the picture right now, you can see that it almost looks like sunset. But if you look at the time, it is about 10 past 3.
It's 8 past 3 as
8
we speak.
8 past 3. But if you go outside, those who have a chance to run outside and see, oh, it sounds like it's time to knock off and go home after work.
And those are the characteristics we were talking about. Darkness, the sky is dark, stars visible, temperature falling. I don't know whether the temperature is falling, but from the look of things, birds are starting to sing, and that's the excitement. Look at what we are left with on the screen, almost going into the umbra, Melton.
Yes, that's exciting.
And in fact, Melton, it has been said that Harare will get 98% eclipse, Bulawayo will get 87% eclipse. Going by the picture that we have now, a person in Harare and...
Well, to answer you quickly, as I have said a few minutes ago, that small curve of light which we are seeing is what the people in Bulawayo are seeing right now, and maybe also the people in Harare are seeing. But the people in Bulawayo are seeing more light than those in Harare. But those in Manapur are seeing total darkness, total eclipse. There's nothing on the screen. This is the moment.
That exciting moment, the eclipse of the sun in Zimbabwe and the rest of Southern Africa, Angola, Zambia, and Mozambique included, and all visible in the change of behavior of the animals at some stage when we saw the total eclipse. The sounds of the birds came to a quietness.
Yeah, for those who have been watching the program, when there was total eclipse, we could hear the sound of the birds and the other insects. They were quite loud. But when the sun started reappearing, those sounds also were suddenly going down. That's what I observed. And I'd like to think for those who were in Manapus, they experienced more darkness as those who are in Harare, and those in Harare experienced more darkness as those who were in Blue Whale.
And those are the differences that we had. Harare 98%, Bulawayo 87%, yeah. Chitungwiza 98%, yes. But in the northeastern part of Zimbabwe, Mudzi, Mutoko, yeah. Nyamapanda, 100%. What were your observations, Peter? Did you feel the excitement? Did you?
In fact, I would like to ask you, Robson, that you were watching your clock, your watch, you were actually timing it. How long did it actually take? I did time my watch, and it came to 3 minutes 15 seconds, and that was the time of total darkness as I was watching on the screen, and the sun started reappearing on 3 minutes 20 seconds. And in actual fact, the last picture showing the animals that we saw on the screen actually showed the hippos actually getting back into the water, which I found quite fascinating. And that's the reality of all of it. I want to take it back to the whole instance. This is a natural phenomenon, Melton, and it's God-given. It's the Lord showing His power, His supreme power, so to speak. It's not us. It's not man-made.
Yes, this is going to be a historical moment for everybody, more so for the scientists to experience it for themselves and to have the real evidence in their hands. I think most of we tried to phone the physics department today, and everybody was out. So I think it's a day to remember. Yeah.
But the human being, as the most sophisticated animal on earth, have come to equal footing with the Lord's power, with the supreme power of the earth, and coming on board. Look at the activities that people went into, traveling, preparing for it, planning. Some people leaving their offices, some people leaving their homes, some people leaving their workplaces to gear up for watching this 3-minute phenomenon, Peter.
In fact, Robson, putting aside God and the issue of the supernatural, we have the issue of men trying to conquer nature. You are talking of movement to eclipse viewing areas. Actually, what is happening is, since the invention of the wheel, traveling has actually become much easier. People travel now by plane, travel now by car. So in actual fact, movement has actually become much easier. Men is now being able to invent things like viewing glasses. Imagine in ancient times, the times of the Greeks, the times of the Babylonians, they wouldn't dare look at the sun. But here, you and me and Melton, we can actually use viewers to actually look directly at the sun and actually observe what is happening. So here is another aspect of men actually conquering nature.
Melton, what would be your message to people in and around Zimbabwean hospitals? As I know there's so many people who are bedridden as we speak. They are hearing about it. They just, feeling it through us, through other people who are observing it, but they can't have the chance to observe like what some of us did. What is your impression to them? Do you share the same sentiments with them?
Well, it's a sad story that maybe some people are not feeling well and they did not have the opportunity to share this experience with us, but I guess there are people who have tried their best to be part and help others to get this information, just like what ZBC is doing. I'm trying to imagine how many television sets are on right now so that we can share all this experience. So What I would like also to say is when the solar eclipse started, we looked at the time, it was around 10 to 2. That shows how much accurate our scientists have gone. Some people were not even believing that it will happen at exactly the times which were
exactly at 10 to 3.
But this is proof to the world that this is what research is all about. Some people could tell that it was meant to happen at such a time, and it actually did happen at that particular time.
That point you were making, Peter, that men are striving to conquer nature, as it were.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to throw the question back to Milton. The fact that our concept of the world is actually governed by the Western conception of how the world is actually. We tend to see the West as superior. People from the Western world, we view them as being superior to us. But here we are, Zimbabwean scientists, Zimbabwe personalities, actually dealing with this phenomenon quite effectively in terms of predictions, in terms of scientific research. Are you happier?
Yeah, well, I'm not good in commenting about Western or Eastern, but the way I see things is, from a scientific point of view, it doesn't matter where technology comes from, whether it's from the Eastern or from the Western, but what is important are the facts which are being presented, the truth, and that is what is important. And for those who are in Zimbabwe who have experienced this phenomena, it is a fact for them which they will keep as a heritage for themselves.
If you ask Evans Makondo, who is our controller for engineering and technical services, he will tell you this is explained in two phrases: the interactive field forces and natural forces interactions. The explanation, put simply, is that as we're talking, the three of us talking to Zimbabwe right now concerning the eclipse of the sun, many other activities are taking place surrounding us and around us, around the world. And as the solar eclipse was coming on board to Southern Africa, so many people, the scientists you mentioned, have been delving into knowing what exactly this solar eclipse, when it would happen, the nature of the eclipse, the time period, like exactly we're saying, it all started at 10 to 3, it's going to come to an end at 4:30. So forces of nature will be interacting in that case, and that's the explanation of another exciting man who is obsessed by this science research in the name of Evans Makondo of the ZBC.
And Robson, before Milton comes in, you know, the kind of tranquility that we experienced watching the eclipse actually developing, you know, the kind of serenity, the kind of tranquility, you know, you could actually feel at peace with yourself. Did you feel the same?
I did feel the same, and I hope everyone else feels the same. And I think this is the kind of peace that nature says to us, this is the way you should live. We should be in peace all the time. And I think I'm not the fanatics of all people in the church, but I go to church. I believe the Lord is trying to say to us, peace is the best for us to operate, and those are the conditions under which we should operate all the time. Me and you, Peter and Melton, smile to each other every day and share ideas, and that's the way we should live on.
And then Melton could come in.
Okay, coming to the point which I was talking about. You see, the total eclipse brings our minds to what is going out there in space. That's why, if you see the run-up to this program, a lot of speakers have been talking about the solar system, the universe, the galaxy. There's a whole lot of research which needs to be done out there. We need to know whether we are the only human beings on this earth, or maybe there are other living creatures out there, or perhaps we can live somewhere in the outer space. Maybe there is another planet which we can live, which have the same conditions.
We can be to Jupiter, we can be to Mars.
Yes. So there's still a whole lot of research, and by having this experience of the total eclipse, it reminds us of what is happening outside there. there's a whole lot of information which we still have to understand, which we have to learn.
It's the hospitality industry that is benefited most, particularly for Zimbabwe, because of this influx of visitors that we had coming to Zimbabwe from Germany, all over Europe, from Britain, from as far as Japan. And the hospitality industry has come equal to the task. We had the facilities in Zimbabwe. We had our places in Zimbabwe. If you think of Mutoko, if you think of Manapus, if you think of Victoria Falls, and the rest of the Zambezi Valley, where people converged intending to watch the total eclipse of the sun. This is a good part of the hospitality industry and the tourism industry in Zimbabwe, Peter.
Robson, you see, one thing which I found very, very striking is the fact that we talk of remote areas. But, talk of Mutoko, talk of Manapos, those are quite remote areas. What the hospitality industry has actually managed to do is to show that those areas could be made much, much, much more attractive for the local tourist, for the foreign tourists. Infrastructure could actually be put there for you to actually enjoy what those so-called remote places actually can offer. So it's a question of opportunity. It's a question of taking the initiative. It's a question of believing in yourself that in actual fact you can turn conditions around.
You can see from the picture we have in there on our screens now, the birds are up and about and the sun back to light again.
Yeah, if everybody thought the world was coming to an end, I think it's time to revisit your religion. So now the sun is coming up. Very soon the moon would have moved away from the path of the sun and back to normal life.
I wonder what happens to someone who has been sleeping and is waking up now.
Milton, when you look at the way we study, the way we go through our formal education system, we find ourselves wanting to study to be doctors, wanting to study to be engineers, wanting to study to be teachers. But this whole area of astronomy and astronomical research, how possible is it for someone in Zimbabwe to pursue it to such an extent that they can earn a living out of astronomical research? Do you think that is possible?
Yes, the possibility is there, but the obvious drawbacks normally in research are lack of resources, because for example, for you to be able to observe all those stars and all those planets out there, you need very large optical systems which need to be set up, and this is where our resources maybe are lacking. There are a lot of people who would like to do research, but things like that. But also research needs maybe government backing. So infrastructures like the SEDEC are the kind of infrastructures which should promote such kind of research. And nothing is impossible, but people need the support they need in order for any research to be successful.
I think there's heavy input in the case of, you talked about the equipment, but the bottom line is there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of funding for such projects to come into reality. The will is there, the expertise is there. There's so many academics, there's so many people with a lot of commitment, but in agreement with Melton, the issue is resources, particularly financial resources to fund such projects. Is the reason why we see these projects being done in Western countries as opposed to this part of the world, in the developing world, because here in the developing world there's lack of funding, but the expertise is there.
Maybe we should also stop relying too much on donor funding. I mean, mobilizing our own resources, both individual, private, and government, so that we can also be able to achieve what you're just talking about, the fact that these so-called exclusive areas, the youth can actually venture into these areas and actually earn a living out of it.
Now, if we look at the picture now, we can see now that the moon is now moving away from the direction of the sunlight, and very soon, I think now it's about 65% partial, no, 35% partial lighting. Yeah, but maybe in about 10 to 20 minutes, the sun will be out completely. Yeah.
There's something that I noticed, Piri, I tend to be corrected. There's a difference in speed. When the sun was going for the total eclipse, it was faster. It was a faster experience. Now it's a bit of a slower experience. Is there any difference? You agree with me? Or if there's any difference, what's the explanation?
I'm not sure about your findings, because generally the speed of the moon as it moves around the earth is constant. That's why they could predict exactly at what time the eclipse was going to occur. So maybe it appears, but I don't think that's the whole issue.
This aspect that as the moon goes around, it doesn't go around in a perfect circle. It's not a perfect circle. It's sometimes tilted, and that's the explanation why some parts receive total eclipse and some parts receive partial eclipse. Is that the case?
Yeah. As the moon rotates around the earth, it's not a perfect circle. And these are caused by the forces of gravity which are out there. So as it moves, the motion is not a uniform motion.
Little Feet's first friend.
Is made possible by a major grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support